Hey team, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prabh, and today we're going to cover about virtual private network. This session is covered in such a manner that it can help you for your exam preparations and interview preparations. If you're new to my YouTube channel, click on the subscribe button and bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos. My name is Prabh Nair. For more information, you can refer my LinkedIn profile. Without wasting a time, let's start with the first part. Thank you. Okay, so if you go by the definition of VPN, it is clearly say that VPN extend a private network or corporate network across a public network and enable a user to send and receive data across shared or public network to other branches. Let me give an example of that. So suppose we have a system A based out in India, connected with the internet, and we have a branch office in suppose US. Okay. So there are some resources we have in US, like file servers and all that. So file server 1, file server 2, file server 3. Now this user who based out in India want to access his enterprise network, and through the enterprise network he want to access to the resources. So with the help of VPN tunnel, you will create a VPN connection. Okay, over the WAN. So this is basically my internet connection, generic internet connection. If he's sending a request on the internet directly, there is a possibility that we have a multiple attackers. Okay, there are some multiple attackers, attacker 1, attacker 2, attacker 3. So they will try to intercept the data. So VPN providing them opportunity to create a secure tunnel. Okay, it creating a secure tunnel. And then through this particular tunnel, we basically send the data. So A just feel like that he is a part of an enterprise, and by this he can able to access the resource 1, resource 2 and resource 3. Same like we have a other branch. So this is the branch. Instead of a system, we have a branch in India and branch in UK, head office in US. Okay, so now what happened, with the help of VPN, my internal user can able to access the other location resources. My internal user with the help of internet can able to access the other branches resources. So by this way, this private network was extended with the help of VPN over the public to connect with the branch. So this is what is VPN. So VPN extend a private corporate network or private or corporate network across the public network, enable the user to send and receive data across a shared or public network to the other branch. One more example, like in India, we have a metros. In US also we have a private train. So it was created over the public traffics. And if you go by the train, we can able to reach from one location to the location as early as possible because they have a separate route, they have a separate channel by which it basically travel, and that basically save our time, same like we have a VPN which was introduced initially with this purpose. Okay, so when you're talking about the VPN implementation, VPN is basically implemented by two way. One is called as a site to site VPN and second is called as a remote access VPN. As I said, we have a branch office in India, we have a branch office in Bangladesh, and we have a branch office in Sri Lanka. Okay, so they are connected with the internet, and this is my head office. So with the help of VPN, this is the VPN connection, this is the VPN connection, this is the VPN connection, this is the VPN connection. So with the help of VPN connection, one branch can able to communicate with other head office, one branch communicate with this head office, one branch can communicate with this head office, or one branch communicate with another branch seamlessly. It doesn't feel like, okay, they are communicating on the internet. So that is what is called as a site to site VPN. But if there is a one user from his home trying to connect only with that office, using a VPN connect with the head office, that is part of the remote access VPN. Simple, like I am at home and I'm connecting with my branch office, I'm connecting with my enterprise, so that is a remote access VPN. Or we have a multiple branches, they are sharing a data on a regular basis. With the help of VPN, they can able to build the network seamlessly, they can able to communicate across the network. So that is basically called as a side-to-side VPN. Now in a layman, I can explain you how the VPN works. So we have a system A, okay, and this is my head office. So we have a VPN server here, imagine. Let me draw it more effectively. So we have a use system A, and this is basically my branch office. Okay, so we have a VPN server here. Okay, so we have a VPN server. Now user is basically first dial the IP. They dial the IP. Example 1.1.1.1. This request is basically carry on the PPP. You know why? Because the devices which is configured on the internet, they are the DT DC devices. DT DC devices. They don't understand the IP packet and all that. So that the dial-up request is carried by the PPP protocol, which is called as a point-to-point protocol. So the DT-DC device can able to understand, and by this way they able to pass the information to VPN server. Now VPN server is basically ask for the username and password. So this kind of a pop-up we get. Enter the username and enter the password. So there's a username and password we basically enter. When we enter the username and password, default here we use mostly CHAP authentication. Okay, that's why you can see some kind of a blue pop-up when you connect with any server, which asks for the credential called as a username and password. So we enter username, we enter the password. When we enter the username and password, that information sent to VPN. And then we basically create a tunnel. This is the tunnel has been created. So over the WAN, this is the tunnel we created, and through this particular tunnel, we transfer the data. Now your tunnel creating between the user to the location, then it is a remote access VPN. The tunnel created between the two branch, that is called as a side-to-side VPN. Okay, so this is how the VPN basically works. So it established the secure channel over the internet by which they can able to send the data without any issues and everything. And by this way, we have a faster sending of the data. So now we're going to discuss about the different type of tunnel. But before that, in VPN, we also need to understand the security model. So when we're going for the VPN, it offers three important things. First is called as a confidentiality. So confidentiality mean it creating a separate tunnel through which it send the data so it can protect against sniffing and all that. So that is the best thing about VPN. Second is it offered the authentication, which prevent unauthorized user from accessing the VPN. Definitely when you're connecting with any branch office and all that, it need a username and password. Until unless you don't have a username and password, you can't able to connect with them. So by this way, we ensure only the authorized users to be part of or connect to the branch office. They also use the hashing and all that by which they ensure that okay, message should not be altered. That is a VPN is rely on the external solution which is called as a IPsec. Okay. So these are the three important security models are used in a VPN. Okay, protection against unauthorized disclosure. Okay, make sure only authorized user can able to connect. And third, protect against the unauthorized modification. Now we're going to discuss about the VPN tunnel. Okay, so next part is VPN tunnel types. We have a two type of tunnels, PPTP and L2TP. We also have a third which is called SSL VPN and all that. As we're covering more from an interview and exam preparation, so I thought I will limit it to two only because these are the base. So in this section, we're going to discuss what PPTP, L2TP, because when you're talking about tunnel we create in the side to side and tunnel we create in the remote user. So the first part we're going to discuss about PPTP. Okay, so first we're going to discuss about PPTP. If you go by the description of PPTP, it's saying it's Microsoft point-to-point tunneling protocol. You are absolutely right. It is basically developed by Microsoft. So that's why it is called as a Microsoft point-to-point tunneling protocol, which is designed to provide tunnel encrypted communication. Okay, so it is used to connect client across the dial switch point-to-point network to the internet and then to the private enterprise network to the MS servers on such networks. If you're talking about the packet structure of the PPTP, before going to discuss about the packet structure, let me explain you the process. So we have a user here connected with the internet. So we have a router 1, router 2, router 3. So we have our routers here. And here we have a VPN server. This is the Microsoft RAS server, you can say. And then from there, we connected with the system A, system B, system C. So this is basically my enterprise. You can see like that. Okay. So user wish to be connect with the enterprise network so he can able to access the resources. So user does the dial up. Definitely when you're doing dial up, these protocols only understand layer 2. So by this, the information carried to the Microsoft RAS server. Now when this carried, this is basically carried by the PPP. On top of it, we also add the PPTP protocol because Microsoft will not able to understand the layer 2 communication. We need something like a layer 3 communication protocol. So Microsoft will not able to understand PPP. So we basically carry PPTP request with PPP. Then Microsoft, when it receive the request, it basically asks for the username and password. Microsoft is using a PAP and CHAP. Primarily, it uses CHAP, which is called as a Challenge Handshake Authentication Protocol, where the Microsoft will send the nonce value. So when they send the username password, it has a nonce value. That's why, sometimes you notice you get a login pop-up. So you enter the username, you enter the password. That password is used to encrypt the nonce and it send it back to the Microsoft server. Microsoft basically verify validate by decrypting with the same key. If it decrypts successfully, there is a tunnel has been created. And then through the tunnel, we transfer the data. And this is the packet format we have when you're talking about tunnel. So we have a IP datagram, PPP payload, which is purely encrypted. So in PPTP, we use one encryption which is called as a MPP, Microsoft point-to-point encryption, which is used to encrypt this data. And this protocol is use the RC4 algorithm to encrypt the data, which is a symmetric encryption. Then we add the PPP header, which is understood by the layer 2, DT device and DC device. Then we have a GRE header, which is for the routing, and then we have a IP header for the network layer information. So this is how the PPTP is basically work. So PPTP tunnel established a connection on the TCP port number 1723. In most cases, the interviewer will basically ask this question. PPTP use GRE and TCP to encapsulate the PPP packet. This is what we happen and extend the PPP connection through the IP network because IP will not understand the PPP. So that's why we encapsulate that into PPTP so that IP network, which is a Microsoft gateways, will understand. Default PPTP use MPP encryption, which is called as a Microsoft point-to-point encryption, and MPP use one algorithm which is called as a RC4. So that is basically all about the PPTP. Now let's discuss about the L2TP. So when you're talking about the L2TP, L2TP is a tunnel which is so Microsoft has some limitation that it can support above layer 3 communications and everything. Layer 3 communications and everything. What about the internet is configured on X.25? Internet is configured on the ATM. Internet is configured on the layer 2 communications, layer 2 technologies and all that. Because PPTP only work on the Microsoft IP networks and all that. So we are looking for such solution. There the Cisco come into the picture and Cisco basically introduced the L2TP, layer 2 tunnel protocol. So L2TP take PPP authentication and combine with IPsec to offer the secrecy, integrity and additional layer of authentication. I covered the dedicated IPsec topic in my YouTube video. You can check that. So yes, L2TP default does not have any encryption. Like the way PPTP at least have a MPP, L2TP does not have a default encryption. He has to rely on IPsec for that. So with the help of IPsec, it can offer the confidentiality, authentication, and integrity. If you're talking about a high level IPsec, let me share the mind map of IPsec. So IPsec is the protocol suite which is used to protect the IP packets. So it has a modes, it has a protocol, and it has a key management. So when you're talking about the modes, we have a two modes here. So we have a transport mode and we have a tunnel mode. Then we have a protocol which is basically called AH and ESP. First we introduced AH which offer only authenticity and integrity. Later on ESP was introduced which address both confidentiality, authenticity, integrity. For the key management we have a IKE, Internet Key Exchange, which basically sum of ISAKMP and Oakley. IPsec default use AES for the encryption and for the hashing it use SHA. Okay, so that is the function of IPsec. For a digital signature key exchange, they use Diffie-Hellman. So that is a function of IPsec. So I'm planning to cover in a separate module about IPsec. So here we're talking about L2TP. So L2TP use IPsec by which it protect the IP packets. So L2TP use UDP. So UDP datagram contain the whole L2TP packet, which include the content of L2TP header. And L2TP use register UDP port number 1701. Okay, 1701. Now in L2TP, we have a two type of message. One is called as a control message and one is called as a data message. When you're talking about the control message, it passes control and data message over the separate control and data channel. So L2TP passes control and data message over the separate controls and data channel, and the inbound control channel pass the sequence controls, connection management, call management, error reporting, session control message and everything. Okay. And when you're talking about data message used to encapsulate the PPP frame that are sent into the L2TP tunnel. That is basically the two type of message we have. So if you ask me the overall hierarchy of VPN, radius, IPsec, so let me explain that also, and then we'll discuss some coffee shots. Now, if you take a scenario here, okay, so we have a user one based out in India. We have a user two which is based out in Bangladesh, and we have a user 3 which is based out in Sri Lanka. They are basically connected with the internet. So this is my internet. Okay, I'm going to cover radius and TACAS plus in a separate module, but I thought I will cover very high level here. Okay, as we're covering the VPN. Now this is my router. Let me configure. So this is my router. And now what we did, this is basically my enterprise network. This is my enterprise network. Okay. Now what I did here is we have a VPN server which listen IP. We have a dial-up server which understand number, and then we have another VPN. They all are basically connected with the radius. And radius basically connected with the Active Directory or certificate authority. You can say AD as a LA also, LDAPs. So process is, now we have a user. So user basically with the help of internet do the dial up, do the IP dial, because here the client need to select the connection also, whether he need to go for PPTP or whether he need to go for L2TP. He select the PPTP L2TP from this pointer, and by this he send the request to VPN. So this is basically there is a possibility of using a dial-up protocol here, which is called PPP. And then on PPP we basically have a L2TP or we have a PPTP. Now VPN basically ask for the username and password. Username and password. This time either using CHAP. If using Microsoft, then Microsoft version is called as a MS CHAP. Or we have a PAP, which is more concern. Then he enter the username password and he send the information to the VPN. Now VPN itself will not do the authentication because we also receiving a request from dial-up, we receiving from VPN. We also have an access point here who receiving a request from multiple users. So what I need here is I want a centralized identification, authentication, authorization. I'm looking for a centralized identification, authentication, authorization. So in that case, they will forward the information to Radius. Radius is act like a intermediate agent. To Radius, this request is carried by the protocol which is called as a EAP, Extensible Authentication Protocol. So because so far the packet does not have a IP, so it passed the information to Radius, so it is carried by the EAP protocol which work on the layer 2. Radius will pass this information to AD. Radius is just act like an intermediate agent. Radius pass this information to AD. AD will authorize and verify, and then he authorize the Radius. Radius will forward this information to VPN. And VPN is basically help us to create a tunnel between these two systems. And through this system, it basically transfer the data. So this is how it works. Radius has a limitation. It work on the UDP protocol and the information which is basically exchanged from Radius to AD in a plain text. So in order to secure that, we basically introduce the TechAS Plus. Okay, TechAS is basically from a Cisco proprietary. So this is how the overall things works in the systems. I'm planning to cover the Radius in a separate module. So if you understand this topic well, let's have a coffee with Prabh. Okay, so which type of tunneling protocol is supported for Microsoft environment? The keyword is Microsoft environment or MS gateway. So definitely directly we remove the L2TP for the Cisco. SSL VPN is also work, but SSL VPN is a vendor agnostic. It means it can work on the browser base and all that. And from exam point of view, remember that SSL VPN doesn't require any kind of a configuration. Open the browser and connect. So when we looking from the point of view of a least configuration, less tedious task and all that, we can go for SSL VPN. IPsec VPN, there's nothing called as a IPsec VPN. VPN is work with L2TP and all that, so that is removed. So only option is basically left is A, PPTP. That's why the answer is A for alpha. Let's move to the next coffee shot. What is the primary limitation with PPTP? PPTP support layer 3, that is the advantage, that is not a limitation. PPT doesn't support the layer 2 WAN protocols, that is true. PPT do support layer 2 WAN protocol, it is a wrong statement itself. PPP send the data in plain text, which is a wrong statement. So only option which is very close is B. PPTP does not support layer 2 WAN protocol. That is why we introduce the L2TP. PPTP support from a layer 3 onwards for the Microsoft understanding. Okay. So which type of VPN implementation allow organization to establish VPN tunnel between two or more branches? Option A, site-to-site VPN. Option B, remote access VPN. Option C, HTTP, and option D, telnet. C and D is not there, so we're left with A and B. The keyword talking about here, two more branches. So answer is basically site-to-site VPN. Which VPN type inherit PPP authentication, integrate with the IPsec to provide confidentiality, integrity, potentially another layer of authentication? We know that the answer is basically L2TP because PPTP has their limitations. So let's move to the next part. Which type of VPN tunnel PV traffic cover various network type ATM, IP, and X.25? So answer PPTP doesn't support because these are work on the layer 2. There's nothing called as a IPsec VPN. Telnet is for remote administration. So only option is basically left is L2TP. So if you find this video useful, do share in your network and let me know what are the new videos you want me to create. If you're new to my channel, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm coming with more videos like that with questions mapping. So by which we can able to have a visibility about the topics. And do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay, guys. And before we wrap up, small assignment. Do let me know some example of layer 2 communication protocol and IPsec limitation in the comment box. Thank you.